Hi, I'm Bill Piwonka. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Janrain. Janrain is a leading provider of what we call user management platform, user management solution. Quite simply, what we do is outsource registration for websites. And where people most know us is via social login. So you've probably come across us if you've ever used your Facebook or your LinkedIn or Twitter account to access a website.
Tell me about the history of the company, because Janrain's been through some changes, and to the extent you can give us that history from where it started and how it got to where it is at today, that would be really interesting.
We were founded by Larry Drebis, and back in 2005. Larry has had a number of very successful startups in the past. You may be familiar with Rocket Mail, which eventually became Yahoo Mail. Larry was behind that company prior to coming up to Portland and starting Janrain. And back in 2005, Larry saw a problem that we as consumers all face, which is, even back then, so many different websites required a unique username or password to access content or that website for whatever reason. And it simply isn't possible for consumers to remember all the different usernames and passwords. And so he came up with the idea of, why couldn't we have one universal username and password combination that kind of followed us as we went to the different sites? So he set about with a couple of different engineers trying to solve that problem. They initially helped co-found and co-fund the OpenID Foundation. And so a lot of the work they did was open source and presented within this OpenID community. So today, if you've ever used social login, it may not be our technology specifically that you're using, but the underlying libraries are absolutely from those beginnings.
You guys are located in Portland, Oregon, not a Silicon Valley company. Has that, from your perspective, created any particular challenges?
We love it here, and we're very, very committed to it. We have the conversation all of us have in Portland is fighting this perception that you can't find good people here, and we've been fighting it for 15 years or more. The reality is I've hired a lot in the Bay Area. I've hired in Seattle. I've hired throughout the country. There's a bell curve. Great people are hard to find no matter where you go, and by quantity, sure, there's more in the Bay Area, but there's also a lot more competition for those good people. In Portland, people tend to be loyal, and so you don't have as much job hopping, which is really good from a management perspective. You can get employees and keep them, and you have that institutional knowledge that continues on. It's cheaper to live here, so our costs are lower than what they would be to have a business in the Bay Area. And technology and transportation being what they are, we're really not at any kind of disadvantage for being in Portland. And I think for other startups, 10, 15 years ago, it was really difficult to get funding, especially because the Silicon Valley firms would say, well, how come the Oregon guys aren't investing in you? And the Oregon guys weren't investing because they wanted to invest in the Bay Area. It was this really difficult cycle. Now, if you look at, there's a big core of companies that have raised B and C rounds from outside investors, New York, Bay Area, Seattle. And I think that perception that was around 15 years ago is no longer there. And the companies that raised B rounds 18 months ago are now raising C rounds. And so those investors have already seen return on their investment. And so now they're looking for more startups. And so you look at all the incubators and accelerators that are popping up in Portland. And so I think we're seeing a really nice funnel of these small, two guys in an idea in a garage, all the way up into the companies that potentially are going to go public or beyond.
So you've worked at several different startup companies before coming to Janrain. How did you decide to go the startup route versus staying at a larger company?
Personally, I just love to build things. Build teams, build companies, build markets. And when I was at some of the larger companies, some Fortune 100 type companies, they're doing great things, and you're able to move the market simply because you have the strength of the brand behind you. But there's only so much you can do, and there's so many layers of management above that, it just takes a lot longer to get things done. Whereas at the smaller companies, you get to help create the culture, you get to help create the market, you get to build the team that you want to build. Things move so much more quickly, and you have so much more freedom to just aggressively go after what you believe is the right strategy.
related to the Portland question, you got to tell me the history behind the Janrain name.
You know, when I was outside the company, I was hoping this wasn't the case, but now that I'm here, I totally embrace it. Larry and the engineers were going down to a conference and needed to have a name, and it was a rainy day in January. And they came up with Janrain, and you know, I think it potentially hits a little bit on a negative of the, you know, the perception of it always raining up here, but we're very proud to be in Portland, and it does rain in January, so we wear it proudly now.